Hi, learners around the globe. My name is Francesca Chen, and I am the Executive Director of Together Today nonprofit. Welcome to our very first episode of Global Conversations. We start our series off in Vancouver, British Columbia, with Joan Posivy, the president of Rotary Club of Vancouver, host of podcast Side Hustle Hero, and author of the novel The Way Success Works. We discuss the Rotary International, youth mentorship, pathways to personal growth and success, and so much more. The links to learn more about Joan and Together Today nonprofit are in the description. Without further ado, let's meet Joan.
Hello there.
Hi, Joan.
Oh, let me grab my microphone. There we go.
Much better.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Excellent. Well, congratulations on this new initiative.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you so much for joining us. I know you're going to have a lot of valuable insights. I'm really happy to initiate the discussion.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation.
So first question to start off, could you give us a brief snapshot of the Rotary Club of Vancouver? What is its connection to Rotary International? When were both established, and what is their shared vision?
So the Rotary Club of Vancouver was chartered 113 years ago. Our birthday's coming up June 2nd. It's incredible. It's the second oldest in Canada. And globally, there are Rotaract and Rotary clubs in almost, not all, but almost all countries. And from there, it's broken down into zones and then districts. So in our district, there's 40, 50 clubs, and we're one of those. And there's a handful of them in the Lower Mainland here in Vancouver. And our Rotary clubs typically meet once a week, and that can either be in person or online or a combination of. And some clubs do a combination of kind of a business meeting and then socials and maybe a meeting online. So it really varies, but we stay connected.
That's so wonderful. And actually, for the listeners who are here today that don't actually know as much about Rotary International, are you able to give a shared vision that you, as Rotary Club of Vancouver, have with the Rotary International, the larger branch?
Yeah. Our mission of our club is to help our members and our community thrive. And that means various things for different people. And that's really reflected in, Francesca, in our membership. Membership in Rotary starts at, I believe it's 19 years old and goes to very old. And we've got members throughout that spectrum. There is Interact, which you're familiar with, which is grade 11 and 12. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe most of the members in our club is grade 11 and 12.
Okay. And then from there, you can go into what's known as Rotaract, and that's 19 to 30-ish, although there's no longer an upper age limit. And then after that is Rotary. So a lot of our members are in their 30s, 40s, all the way through to people that have retired, people who are either in the midst of building their career or building their own businesses. And so as far as thriving, that can be, again, a variety of things. So in that weekly meeting that I made reference before, I've really focused this year as president on providing content and presentations for the meeting that is valuable to our members. So for example, last week, about 10 days ago now, we had the CEO and president of the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade, Bridget Anderson, who just brought down the house. She was amazing, but she's the first female president in its 138-year history. And June 1st, we are hosting singer-songwriter, Grammy Award winner and 13-time Juno Award winner, Sarah McLachlan, at our club to present to her what we call the Paul Harris Fellow Award for her philanthropy. And so going back to our club for a second, our motto or our tagline is where business meets philanthropy, because we're a downtown club. And if somebody were interested, say, in joining Rotary, I highly suggest that they check out whatever clubs are available in their community. Like right in the downtown core, there's about 4 clubs meeting at different times of day, and they all have their different vibes, different feels, different areas of focus that they want to concentrate on. And even in a small community where I lived for about 30 years, there was at least 2 clubs. And so check them out, and there's something for everyone.
Yeah, actually, whenever I look at Rotary International's website, it's just so incredible how much structure and how much diversity and accessibility that you guys have. No matter where you are in the world, there's probably a Rotary
Yes.
Club nearby, or at least there's going to be one that's going to be established maybe in a few years or coming up. And so it's really accessible for all age groups. And there's always some overlap between the different segments. So you mentioned Interact, Rotaract, and then Rotary. And there's leeway between them that you can explore different horizons of
Yeah.
Rotary themes. So that's absolutely beautiful.
And that's really one of the many, many, many benefits of being a Rotarian or an Interact or a Rotaractor. Once you're part of this family, as you travel, you can visit these clubs as you go. So, for example, when I was in Kathmandu, Nepal, I had a fantastic time hanging out with the Rotaractors. And then there were some local Rotarians that showed me around and honestly got me into places and showed me things that I would have never seen as a tourist.
Yeah. I love that image of like a globally connected community, as in like
Yes.
we are a global community here at Rotary, which is amazing. And actually, you mentioned that you are the president of the Rotary Club of Vancouver. But before then, you were a member with your own career and your own life and your own past. So what was
Yeah.
the spark or a specific moment from your past that made you realize you wanted to dedicate your time to Rotary?
Okay, so we're going back over 28 years ago. And then, and for decades, my career has followed 2 tracks. Initially, it was in banking, and there's a whole backstory to that. But once I chose to leave banking, I was either always a business owner, and then at the same time, I also had a speaking and seminar business along the side. In part because I never wanted to be a speaker, Francesca, who was just talking about these ideas. So my businesses were like my sandboxes that I could test these ideas, and what worked I kept and continued to teach. And it was during that process that I was presenting a seminar, and somebody came up to me and says, I know somebody, and the 2 of you need to get together. And so he connected us, and I went to this person's office. Dave Douglas is his name. And it was going to be a half an hour conversation, and we ended up talking for 2 hours. I mean, we just hit it off. So many of our values and what we deemed important in life, we were in sync. And he said, oh, by the way, every year I do this thing called RYLA, which is Rotary Youth Leadership Awards. Will you come and present? And the more he told me about it, I was intrigued, so I did. And I really loved it. And apparently they connected with my material. And that went on it's been 28 years since I've been presenting at that annual event. I like to tell people that I started when I was really young. But yeah, it's been 28 years. But it wasn't until I moved to Vancouver. I was never a Rotarian back then. 10 years ago, I moved to Vancouver, didn't know a soul, didn't know the geography. And I thought, you know what? I want to put down some roots. This is a great time to join Rotary. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to step up and become a Rotarian. So I was a kind of a Rotarian on the periphery for a very long time before I actually joined.
Yeah. And actually, when I was reading through your profile, I saw a very strong connection between all your years in Rotary Club of Vancouver is this youth connection in itself and youth work, and especially
Yeah.
at RYLA, which is something that you just mentioned. And actually, I would like to bring our conversation there. So you've mentored so many young people through RYLA or through other programs in your career. And so what is the most common
Yes.
fear you see in youth today who want to make a difference? And how do you help them move past it?
I think they underestimate their potential to make a difference. I think that's huge, and underestimate the power they have within themselves to really make a difference in their own lives first and foremost, because the more confidence and sense of independence you have within yourself, then the more you have to give others. So the stronger your belief in self, the more you can provide to those around you. And I'm happy to share a quick kind of an analogy for that if you think we've got time for it.
Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So back then, I guess it was my early 20s,
Mhm.
I heard of the story of the Golden Buddha housed in Bangkok, Thailand. And as soon as I heard it, I wrote it down as a goal that I had to visit it. I didn't know how. I was living in Canada at the time and certainly didn't have the financial means, but I thought, I got to see this thing. And it was a few years after that, I was invited by a mentor of mine to come teach some seminars with him in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And it was for his client, Malaysia and Airlines. Now, they fly places all over the place, all over the world, including Thailand. And so, as part of the deal, on my way home, I could fly anywhere I wanted to. And of course, that included Bangkok, Thailand. And just as a little quick side note, that's one of the teaching points I wanted to share is that when you identify something that you'd really like to have, do, or be, don't be concerned with present circumstances and say, well, I'm not going to write that down as a goal because I can't do it because of, and then you list off some circumstances. That's a common mistake. Don't fall into that trap. Your thinking and choices have brought you where you are today. But from now on, you've got a clean slate ahead of you. Like I said, when I wrote that down, I didn't know how I was going to end up in Bangkok. But you just put it out there to the universe and then you watch for opportunities for it to unfold. At any rate, fast forward a bunch, I'm standing in front of this statue and it truly is magnificent. It is 3 meters tall, about 10 feet. It's pure gold. It is valued at around $250 million and it's thought to be about 8 centuries old.
Wow.
Now, the keepers of the statue way back then were concerned about its safety, marauding tribes, and they would steal it. But at the same time, this thing is massive. It's huge. It weighs, I believe it was 5 tons. So you're not going to pick it up on your arm and move it. So they came up with a brilliant solution. They covered this golden Buddha in clay, in plaster, and they inlaid bits of colored glass to make it look decorative, but not necessarily worth anything. Well, the disguise worked, but it worked so well that over the decades, the generations, over time, over the centuries, the value and the mystery of what lay beneath was lost. Until, get this, 1955, in Bangkok, they needed to move the statue. So at this point, it's still covered in this plaster. And they put these straps around it, and the crane goes to lift it and move it. And as it did that, one of the straps broke. The statue falls. The corner of the plaster cracks, revealing the gold underneath. And it's like, oh my gosh, look at this thing. So I'm standing in front of this statue thinking, how could something so commanding, so stunning have remained hidden for so long? And that same sense of awe can and should be felt for what lies at the core of you and I, because you and I, like that storied Buddha, were born golden. But almost immediately, we begin to be covered up in these layers of plaster, if you will. Can't do this, can't do that. Well, I can't achieve this because this going's wrong. And for a lot of people, those layers aren't chipped away. Rather, they're added on over the years. And that possibility starts to get covered up. And so most of my adult life has been chipping away my own layers, but also in training people on how to chip away at those to have more of that possibility and that sense of possibility and hope prevail.
Yeah. When I was listening to your story, I keep thinking of the plaster for maybe me and a lot of the youth out there as negativity, like your negative thoughts. And I think this has been more profound nowadays because the internet is, this ever looming presence. And there's so much going on there that essentially creates an idealistic view of what maybe someone's life should look like. And so that builds on the plaster, continuing your analogy for these youth and for these individuals.
Yes. Somebody said that as the what you're seeing online is the highlight reel, not the bloopers, right? You're just saying the best of the best and sometimes just made up, to be honest with you. But that's something that, and as difficult as it is, I get that because these platforms are designed to suck you in and keep you scrolling and looking. But having that knowledge on a conscious level to say, okay, that's what these companies are trying to do to me. I'm going to take conscious control over that. And I'm going to determine, and again, it's simple, but it's not easy, where I'm going to be spending my attention. And I hear somebody's feeds, they're like, there's all this negativity and all these like terrible things coming across their feed. And I'm like, what are you scrolling? What are you watching? Because of course that's what it's propagating. My feed's a lot about, unicorns and rainbows. Now, I know that's not the world. There are a lot of problems out there. Don't get me wrong. But feeding yourself that negativity 24/7 does not help you. And therefore, by extension, doesn't help the rest of the world either.
Yeah, and actually, if we like flip that, I guess, like instead of always going into the negativity, like feed of information, you transfer into the positivity. So as you mentioned, like unicorns and rainbows, maybe we can translate that into like more helpful things like joining, amazing nonprofits like Rotary, or getting yourself involved in education and health accessibility in your neighborhoods or poverty, and really branching out from that, just like focused on that negativity.
And starting initiatives like you're so brilliantly doing here. You've got this idea, and a lot of people, they get a really good idea, but that's as far as they take it. They just talk about it or think about it, but they actually don't take action. But you've stepped out and actually beginning to create this. So congratulations for you on that.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm still learning how to, the ropes and everything, but I think that's also a really important lesson for everyone out there, that you don't start just knowing exactly like where you want to go.
Oh my gosh.
And how you want to see things or how your vision is going to look. You have to actually bring yourself out there and try, which is something that you were also mentioning earlier with your statue analogy.
And for absolutely every major accomplishment that I've had. So the podcast that I have is now, this June, it's going to be 4 years. And there's going to be a point in every initiative, even like the one you're doing now, where you're going to want to quit. You come up with some kind of a barrier where you don't know how you're going to figure it out. You don't have the technology or the contacts or the money, like something. And you're thinking, well, maybe this is a dumb idea anyway. Like maybe I'll just, go back and focus on something else. So what I did with the podcast, 2 things that I recommend. One of the things with the podcast is I said, okay, I'm going to make a commitment that I'm going to do this for 1 year. Come hell or high water, I'm going to put together 52 episodes. And only then will I give myself the opening to say, okay, does this make sense? Am I enjoying it? Is it making a difference? Do I want to continue or not? But I'm not going to allow myself to do that at episode 7 or 8, because that's when a lot of podcasts just disappear. And then the second thing is to have an accountability partner. Because when you try something new that you haven't done before, if it's a big enough goal, if it's a big enough dream, you're not going to know how to do it. And chances are you're going to have to do things that are outside of your wheelhouse, outside of your comfort zone. And when you come up against that, what I call the terror barrier, which feels very different than your comfort zone. Comfort zone is like, I know how to do this. It's not a big deal. But suddenly you're interviewing people, you're reaching out to people. There's that opportunity for rejection. That can be difficult. And so I highly recommend having an accountability person. And that could be a very simple system where every 2 weeks you write to this person who's agreed to do this with you. And your subject line in your email is successes and commitments. And you say, here's what I'm committing to do for the next 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks from now, you're going to report back on those commitments. Did you do them or not? And then you're also going to report back your successes. So the successes that you've had the past 2 weeks, and then the commitments that you're going to focus on for the future 2 weeks. And you do that every 2 weeks to get to the point where you've built that momentum. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does. And that's actually really wonderful and really valuable advice that a lot of young people and even any person in this world deserve to know about and actually experience for themselves. I think that's the most important part, like applying the learnings, whether it's from you, Joan, or from anywhere else in the world that's advocating for this advice, to actually do it and see how you interpret it and go about that success your way. And actually, thank you so much. Go ahead.
And I was just going to say, and having that accountability person and doing that every 2 weeks, successes and commitments, it doesn't cost you anything. It's just a friend or a family member or a colleague who wants to see you succeed. That's the other part of it. You want them to be behind you. And it takes very little effort on their part, like the accountability person who's receiving it. They're not doing the work, you are. But you're choosing somebody who you highly respect and that you don't want to disappoint. So you're going to go that extra mile to make sure that what you said you're going to do, you actually follow through and do it.
Yeah, like having an effective means of progress tracking, as opposed to
Yes.
just. Mhm.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that because when I've done it, I've typically kept it in one email thread. So it's
Mhm.
kind of cool afterwards to go back and see that
Oh yeah,
progress.
see your growth and your
Yeah.
progress. Yeah,
Yeah, for
wonderful.
sure.
Actually, thank you so much for bringing up Side Hustle Hero podcast. That's a podcast that you run, that you have been running, and
Mhm.
yeah, so it's about taking action to initiate and run a successful side hustle for those the people that are listening that really want to embark on that. And you've
Mhm.
spoken to dozens of people, and I've watched some of your podcast interviews of people who noticed the problem and built a solution on the side. So out of all the many interviews that you've done, is there a single most impactful story or lesson you've heard on the podcast that has changed specifically how you lead Rotary Club today?
Oh my gosh. Oh, so many. And
I know it's a
that's
difficult question.
it is because it's one of the things that I love about doing the podcast is that the guests are so varied. Like one person that I interviewed just this morning, he built a seven-figure business selling these organic material bed sheets. And like I know, right?
Very sustainable, first of
And
all.
then right, and then some time ago I had a beekeeper, out in Texas. So they're very, gosh, they're very different. But I think one of the themes I've noticed is that, like you said, they had this idea of seeing a need and filling it. But one of the most impactful, I'll grab a local one for us, is a lady by the name of Melissa Mills. She likes, dips, like you'd use for crackers and chips and stuff. But she didn't like what was out on the market. And so she created these non-dairy ones, and they're cashew-based dips. She started with $500 and a blender. She couldn't afford a car. It was a bicycle that she had. So a bicycle, $500 and a blender. And now her company, she's grown it into mid seven figures, 5-6 million in revenue. And she's still doing the markets. That's where actually I heard about her. I first bought the product there, and her husband was behind the booth at that time. And we started talking, and I said, that they were doing it full time. And I said, it didn't actually start as a side hustle, did it? He says, oh, let me tell you. So he started telling me about the story. So I actually interviewed her first on the podcast. And then as far as Rotary was concerned, one of the things that I wanted to do last year before my presidency is tap into the expertise of our members, which is another reason to join Rotary. There's an incredible amount of knowledge and mentor possibilities there. And so I started these things called business panels, where I would have 3 or 4 panelists. Initially, it was just Rotary members, and then I started to invite experts in from the local business community. And one of those people was Melissa Mills from this company, this dip company. So it was lovely to see her in person. And so I think the lesson, to loop back, that's a long way of asking your question, is she started with $500. Most people have the ability to scrape that up or get it loaned to them somehow to start something that they believe in. And so the fact that she's built that with, and I should add, 0 investor funds, she's grown now from this kitchen environment to a 20,000 square foot facility in Richmond, all from just plugging back in the profits that she was earning from the business to grow it. There's no outside investors. And so stories like that gives me hope. It's like, okay, if she can do it, I can do a version of that with my idea.
Yeah, that's
And
actually
there's people there that want to help you, especially when you're younger. There's so many adults there that will go the extra mile for you because they want to see you win.
Yeah, that's a very wholesome account, and actually really flows nicely into my next question. So there's a lot of people out there that have these ideas, and it's so important to know that you can start from square one.
Mm-hmm.
As in, like, you can start with $5 and maybe just a very a rough drafted idea, and as long as you keep continuing to apply hard work, to have that guidance beside you, you can grow it to something as amazing as Melissa, and as amazing as you, Joanne, are doing with your podcast. And however, there are a lot of people, even in Vancouver, that have a lot of obstacles that are in place before they can actually step up and take action on their dreams, and specifically in terms of education or health accessibility. So when you personally look at Vancouver, what is one issue that keeps you up at night, and how is Rotary uniquely positioned to fix it?
It goes back to our original or earlier discussion about people not giving themselves enough credit.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, build the image of what it is that you would like to have, do, or be. And do you think we've got time for one more analogy?
Yes, I think we do.
Yeah? Okay. So let me explain it this way. Imagine we took an orange seed and we dissected it and looked at it through the most powerful microscope using the latest and greatest technology and looked at it. We would never ever find a little orange tree in there because it doesn't exist in there. But what that orange seed does contain is a pattern plan or a nucleus of what it will grow into. And if we were to take that orange seed and plant it in fertile ground that's conducive to its unfoldment, to its growth, we'd plant that seed, and instantly and automatically particles of energy would be attracted to that seed. And that causes something called growth and expansion. And pretty soon you'd have the roots come out and then the shoots, and then it bursts through the atmosphere. And then from the atmosphere, it attracts particles of energy for its continued growth. And at some point, you've got the twigs and the leaves and the branches and the oranges and the whole thing, but there was never a little orange tree in there. You and I are part of nature. Just like that seed is part of nature. But that seed is locked into its vibratory rate. It can only grow into an orange tree. It can't grow into a cherry tree or a palm tree or maple tree. But you know what makes us different? You and I can grow into anything we choose, because you and I have got the conscious ability to take a look at our outside world and say, and like really dream and say, this is what I'd like to have, do, or be. Then as you make that decision that you're going to go for it, again, this is beyond the wishful thinking or one day I'm going to do it, but just like yourself stepping out and doing this podcast, you go, I'm going to do this. And then it's like, okay, you plant the seed and you care for it and nurture it. And the way you do that is to see yourself in your mind's eye already in possession of the good that you desire, that the success that you seek. And that causes you to take those first steps, like setting up your podcast studio, getting a microphone, interviewing guests, and it starts slowly to grow. But the thing is, as you're putting all this time and effort into it, the world's not necessarily seeing that. You're not necessarily seeing the results of that. But just like that orange seed, we know that it takes a lot of time before we actually see something on the physical plane. That doesn't mean that it doesn't work, or you plant the seed and it's not going to grow. No, there's a gestation or incubation period that happens. And so, again, getting back to your question, is we need to have people to set aside the present circumstances, because anybody could come up with an idea of something they'd like to do in Vancouver. And they'd say, well, I can't do it because I don't have the funding, I don't have access to education, I may not even have shelter at this point. There's going to be a lot of reasons why you can't do it. But I'm here to tell you, if you focus on the end result and what you want to achieve, over time, you'll start to see ways to make it happen. I had a delicatessen in this particular city once. There was about 6 delis in a pretty close proximity. And over the course of 2 or 3 years, most of them shut down or basically went broke while ours thrived. And I got to tell you, it wasn't because we had any fancy marketing acumen or branding expertise, but they were all talking about the recession and how bad things were and why business was so bad. Whereas myself and my partner, we were like, there's a food trade show, we should go to it to see what new ideas we can bring into the community that people would actually like. It's all about mindset. So whatever barriers you see, they're very real. I'm not saying they're not, but let's not focus there. Focus on what you do have. And if there's something missing as far as a resource or assistance or a mentor, over time, it doesn't happen overnight, but as you focus on the end result of what you want, step by step, you'll see that. And maybe it's some community-funded program that gives you the small business training, and from that you meet a mentor, and then you just go step by step. But if you're looking for reasons why you can't do something, that's easy. That you'll be able to find those, no problem at all, especially in Vancouver.
Yeah, I love that like that system that you put in place right there, that you visualize the step by step. And it's so important to just take the first step. Like even if there's so many voices around us, or even like a real physical barriers that are putting us in place, there's always a way around those barriers. And that's such an amazing concept that you apply. And actually on that theory of mindset, if you're okay with just another question is,
sure.
When you face a project, whether at Rotary or in your podcast, or in another initiative that you have that didn't go as planned, or a systematic barrier that felt immovable, how did you handle that frustration using that theory of mindset? And what keeps you from burning out?
What keeps me from burning out, honestly, is that I've had the great benefit of starting to study what you and I have just been talking about since I was about 19 years old. So it's become a way of thinking, but that doesn't happen overnight. I was born with introverted tendencies and was raised by a very loving but stay in the background, not speak out kind of mom. So I had a lot of issues with even, I can't imagine asking for somebody for help years ago. But that'll be a whole other different podcast episode when we get into mindset and actually how to change that. Sorry, ask me the question again, because there was an example that popped into mind right away and I got off on a tangent there.
Of course. So, when you faced a barrier that when you faced a project that didn't go as planned, or some sort of barrier that was immovable, how did you handle that frustration?
Yeah. So the one that popped into mind was, I guess it was there. Yeah. When I wrote my book there, The Way Success Works. I remember that I had this idea of how it was going to come together. And there was a particular February of that year. And I had done all these interviews for the book, young adult youth success stories. And it was just not coming together. Like, honestly, Francesca, I can't do this. This isn't going to work. But then I thought, okay, come on, Joan, give it the title and the content. It's like, it's got to work. And one of the, I guess, quotes that came to mind was, I've used this to this day. If you ever hear yourself say, I don't know how to do this, or I don't know what the solution is, the question you ask yourself is, okay, if I did know the solution, what would that look like? If I did know the answer, what might that be? And I find it causes you to go that extra step to maybe look at it a different way, brainstorming sometimes with someone who is like-minded, not one of those naysayers that are going to put you down and don't want to see you succeed, but somebody that really does want to help you win. Brainstorming could be fun. And I admit this, I will talk to myself. It's like, okay, how can I put this together? What would it look like? What's at least the first step? But that's probably my most used go-to question. And that, even if it could be something simple like, I can't find my keys. Now, that's a negative affirmation right there. I can't find my keys, right? No, your affirmation, you always want it to be positive. So it's like, okay, if I were to find my keys, where would they be? If I had dropped them somewhere, where would they be? So it's always that positive affirmation. Go, there's a plus. And I learned this through, it was a preacher by the name of Robert Schuller. And it was a book that he wrote called Success is Never Ending, Failure is Never Final. And he said, and I love this quote, when you think you've exhausted all the possibilities, remember this, you haven't. So I'm like, oh, Okay, what have I missed? How am I not looking at it? Like maybe I'm too in the weeds. Maybe I need to, again, brainstorm with somebody that's going to help me look at the bigger picture. Maybe I just need to go for a walk. Like that's part of my routine every day. I find myself, I've got to do something physical in the morning, whether that's going to the gym or a walk or something, because it really affects my energy level and creativity for the rest of the day.
Yeah, and actually, we were talking about physical roadblocks earlier, right? So, like health and education
Mm-hmm.
accessibility issues, and now you've kind of transported that into the very common, and honestly, everyone has it, the mental roadblock that's there when you initiate something. And so it's so important, as you mentioned, to always gravitate towards a certain goal. And that goal, maybe it's not always as clear, but as you,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and when you brainstorm with people or when you have those like-minded individuals around you and you guys can work together towards actually clearing up that goal. And once you have that goal cleared, the steps to actually get there also become more clear.
Yeah. And who you find yourself surrounded by
Mhm.
is so important to your, number one, your mental health, but also your goal achievement. And when I say surrounded by, not just the physical humans in your life, but take a look at those inputs, again, going into your system. It goes back to what we were saying about social media. What are you feeding your brain with? Because you are affected on that big time. And that's molding how you look at the world, how you see your ability to achieve your goals. But certainly the people that you hang out, the physical people. Now, some of those negative people could be your family members, right? And depending on your age and your circumstances, that's going to be a little bit more of a challenge to navigate. But the friends that you choose, make sure that they are people who are talking about problem solving and moving the needle forward and doing fun things in their life. And avoid those people like the deli owners in my town who wanted to gather together and talk about what was wrong in the world. They weren't wrong. The examples that they were using in terms of the downward economy, et cetera, they could prove that. They could show the news articles. But my point is that doesn't help me grow my business. I need to turn my attention to, what can I excite customers about that if they do have just a couple of bucks to spend, it's going to be at my business this week kind of thing, right? So, you choose your friends. Choose wisely.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important lesson that extends to everybody on this planet. And I was talking earlier about how Rotary establishes this like globalized connection community, like global
Mm-hmm.
community, and that idea of being able to spend like the time with the people that most want to see you succeed, that are
Yeah.
encouraging you to take on those challenges and drive past those obstacles. That is how I envision it, is the community that Rotaract at its core also wants to create. So that's such a beautiful way to
Yes.
connect all those things together and all those aspects of your life.
And one of those programs, and there's, as you've probably guessed or discovered, there are seemingly a countless numbers of programs and initiatives available. But one of the ones that I wish I'd known about when I was your age is the youth exchange, where you get to go to another country and study for a school year. And essentially, it's paid for by Rotary. I think you have to get there on your own and provide your own spending money, but you've got hosts at the other end. You go to school, you learn a different language. And everybody I've heard that has been to one of those. In fact, I mentioned Bridget Anderson, the CEO and president of the Board of Trade. She was on one back in her day. Yeah.
Everything's all wonderfully connected. Actually, when you mentioned
Yeah.
the youth exchange program, my mind immediately went to the Bangkok, Thailand example that you gave earlier in this
Okay.
episode. And so I'm
Yeah.
thinking, like, if there are any listeners out there that are interested in youth exchange program sponsored by Rotary International, it's maybe it could be a transformational journey for you as well, just like it was for
Absolutely.
Joan.
Yeah. And maybe just by you and I talking about
Mhm.
this now, somebody hears that and it's life changing.
Mhm. Yeah. And so just to end off with a final question, if you could challenge everyone listening, whether they are 16 years old or 60 years old, to do one small uncomfortable thing this week to improve themselves or get themselves involved within community initiatives like Rotary Club, what would it be?
Sorry, I didn't hear the very last line because I think I had an answer, but you
Yeah, no
mentioned
problem.
Rotary. No, okay.
So sorry, if you could challenge everyone listening to do
Yeah.
one small uncomfortable thing this week to improve themselves or get involved in the community like with Rotary, what would it be?
This year we implemented something I call our Unsung Hero Awards.
Mm.
And we're doing it quarterly, and we hand out two, and we just did one this past Tuesday, and that's perhaps what on top of mind. But it was an idea that was born out of a lot of the seminars that I did. I handed out two ribbons to a specific person for this reason, but I'll loop it into the way I've tweaked it for Rotary. So it's called an Unsung Hero Award, and that goes to somebody in our club who does a lot behind the scenes, but most of us don't know about it, right? Because it's behind the scenes. They're working on a committee or doing some kind of a project, and we don't see much. So that shines the spotlight on it. But rather than give them just one ribbon, they're awarded two. One for them to keep as an appreciation and acknowledgement of the award to them. But the second one is then for them to turn around and present to someone else in their life. And so that would be my one thing that might be uncomfortable for somebody that I would suggest that they do. To think about this week, who in your life has made a difference? Could be something very small, could be something large, but chances are they don't know about it. Could be somebody in your family that you see every day, but you actually haven't stopped to mention that. Or it could be somebody where you get your coffee or at the grocery store or something, and just let them know, you know what, I just want you to know I really appreciate this. And I appreciate how you, and then be specific for a line or two. And I think you're going to see quite a smile on their face. And not only you make their day, which in turn is going to affect the people they're surrounded by, but I guarantee you're going to feel pretty good about it too.
Yeah, and again, like bringing in that idea of like a global community is where like we impact everyone, and they'll impact someone else, and we'll be able to expand from there on.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, so you brought up earlier your book, How Success Works, and actually I was able to read through it a while ago, and I'm still going through it. And honestly, from my impression currently is that it's such a transformative novel, like genuinely. And I especially it's pretty straightforward to read too as well, and even for me as a high school student. So I just want to say thank you so much for actually bringing your words out. And I heard about all the hardships you experienced while you were writing the book, but I just want to say that it's such an impactful it's so impactful now that it's actually out there in the world and inspiring the next generation.
Thank you so much.
And as we end off, I just wanted to ask one more question. So if we tie everything out together, is there one project or individual interaction at Rotary or in your other initiatives that you are most personally proud of?
That's got to be Ryla.
Youth mentorship.
Yeah, the Rotary Youth Leadership Awards. And in our district in the past, there has been actually three different RILAs, three different age groups, starting from grade 7 and 8, I believe, then 11, 12, and then the more senior one. And I think the reason I enjoy it so much is that it's that beautiful time in a person's life where they're making decisions for themselves, and they have been exposed to a certain environment. And when they're dropped into RILA, you've got these speakers and trainers that are, experts in their field, and you'll learn about leadership and public speaking and all these sorts of things. And what I do there is just a small piece of it, especially the one that I'm involved with that is a week long. My hat really goes out to the organizers and all the trainers that they bring in. They do an amazing job, and it really is transformational. And so that's got to be my number one. And after 28 years, yeah, I'm a fan.
And youth mentorship is actually really, really important to youth today. So thank you so much for contributing in that area and so much of it as well. Especially, what we were talking about at the very start is youth don't actually know where to start, and they don't have these valuable life lessons that you and other individuals in the world can give them to take that first step and start initiating their own initiatives and their own, finding their way to their success or what they see as their success.
Yeah. Go as far as you can see. And when you get there, you'll see how to go further.
Exactly. Yeah. Joan, thank you so much for sharing your story today. Honestly, when I was reading through your profile, I was inspired, but now after speaking with you, I somehow am more inspired. I hope that listeners feel the same as well.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation.
How can people get involved with the Rotary Club of Vancouver or Rotary International, and where can they follow your work on mentorship and success?
They can find me at, let's see, where would be the easiest? Probably the podcast website, which is sidehustlehero.com. And you can go to rotary.org.
And then find all their amazing programs there and start your own transformational journey.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Joan.
Thank you again. My pleasure.
It was wonderful speaking with you. And I know we went slightly over time, but I took a lot of insight out of it. So thank you so much.
Glad you enjoyed it. I loved it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Have a great rest of the day.
And you.